Hello again, it's Amy. Now, over the years that I've had this channel, I've had some questions about my bookshelves, and I'll flip the camera around in a minute to give you a better view of the shelves. But I've had some questions over the years about what my bookshelves are, where I got the physical shelves, because they're not your typical, I guess I would say, IKEA Billy bookcase. They're something different. So here are the shelves. You can see they go all the way down the wall, and there's 5 of them in a row here. It's a little bit deceptive because they look like they're all the same, but indeed I actually have three separate types of bookcases here, but they're all almost identical. Most of them are the same height. There's the A. Edward Newton collection as we pass by, and the books about book collecting as we pass by, except for this one here, which is unfortunately a little bit shorter because it is actually a different bookcase here. But as you can see, it's just pressed wood. It's a very sturdy pressed wood, but it's just pressed wood. And even though they're different, it's still kind of the same pressed wood, the same look. And I'm about to say something horrendous when I tell you where I bought these, given the attitude towards Amazon these days. But these shelves were all purchases off of Amazon. Amazon Canada, so I don't know about the availability in other countries, but I would assume that these are relatively easily available globally, because they shipped from within Canada, but I think all the boxes said something like made in China or something on them. So they're just these very simple shelves. Oh, and here we are over at the Graphic Publishers collection and my Frederick Philip Grove. But they're just these basic shelves, pressed wood. I rather like the look of this pressed wood because it looks a little bit more natural than a lot of the pressed wood that you would see on a cheap bookshelf. And make no mistake, these bookshelves are cheap. They cost about 150 Canadian dollars each. I bought them back between 2020 and 2023. I started out with one, and then I bought 2 more, and then I think this one was the 4th purchase because I couldn't find my original ones for sale anywhere. And then the 5th one here on the end, and I'm being very careful because I've got my diploma, one of my diplomas on the wall here, and you don't all need to know where I went for my master's. But I purchased them at different times and the listings disappeared, but it seems as though companies are borrowing each other's bookshelf designs, because you really wouldn't know. You really wouldn't know unless I told you, or unless you look closely at this shelf here, that these are in fact 3 different models of bookcases and not all the same kind. And this is fun. You're getting a pretty good view of how my book collection looks. On the bottom, on the end there on the left. There is still some space for books because I've got other things down here. Puzzles to be Christmas gifts, a safe. Oh, and then we've got this bag here. This is a Barnes & Noble bag that I picked up when I was visiting family down in New York State last month. And it's incredibly sturdy. It was $20, but it's got this cute little pocket inside, and that's about the only good thing I found at Barnes & Noble, because their selection is much the same as Indigo Canada here. And I find that my current tastes are not satisfied by new bookstores these days. I would much rather shop used. I would much rather find something old and something beautiful for my shelves. Here is the letters of Madame de Sévigné, and Boswell's Life of Johnson, and Tour of the Hebrides with Dr. Johnson, British essayists, a little bit of Andrew Lang, Addison. There's a copy of The Rambler there from the early 19th century. Lots and lots of essays, some Louisa May Alcott and some W. Somerset Maugham. The works of the poet Gray. Diary of Samuel Pepys. My bookmark is in volume 4 there. And some interesting sets down here. A little bit of Ruskin, not the complete set. The Memoirs of Casanova, Memoirs of Edmund and Jules de Goncourt, which turned out to be more biographical material than what I was really looking for. Memoirs of the Princess de Lin. Some newer books up here. The Library, the Madman's Library, bookbinding, and so on and so forth. I'll just pan along here to end this video. Oh, this is fun. This is an inaugural puck for Ottawa's Professional Women's Hockey League that played its very first season in 2024, and I got the opportunity to go to a couple of games. The tickets were extremely cheap compared to the NHL, but it's really taken off, and almost every game was sold out, and in some of the bigger cities like Toronto, they actually moved the venue to the place where the NHL plays because people were just that interested in women's hockey. And I'm a fan of the NHL myself, but I think I almost enjoy the PWHL games in person more than the NHL, just because it is a smaller venue here in Ottawa, and it is fun to get to know the players and the team for the first time. But there we go. Lots of books, some of my shelves, and I do have 2 smaller versions of these shelves that were actually my very first purchases. But the real question here is, what do I do when all my shelves are full? Because I've got so much real estate moving upwards, and so I've got to figure out some way to make these shelves higher. Because the other option is to replace them entirely, but I've already spent several $100s on these, and I rather like them. I don't feel like spending thousands of dollars that I don't really have just to get larger, taller bookcases. I'm sure there's something I can figure out to add on a couple more layers to these shelves. But I will leave it at that for now. Have a good day, all.